I wanted to give you all a big welcome to our program. This is actually probably not unusual to public art, but it's our first in-person program since the pandemic, so we're delighted that you're here. Yes, finally kind of turning the corner, I hope. And I just wanted to briefly mention how this came about. We have been, public art has a number of works by Dorothy and special collections, and Deborah and Christian will talk more about this. Was fortunate to receive her papers from the Art Museum of South Texas. And so this came about a simple conversation about almost 2 years ago. We had the fortune of convening, so Christian and myself and the leadership of the Art Museum of South Texas just sat one day around the dinner table and we're talking, and the idea came up that why don't we do something together to continue to highlight the enormous, I think, artist that Dorothy was. And so this is it. 2 years later, here we are, and we are delighted that we made this work. So I'll leave it at that. I just want to say that there's enormous potential in having both the archives here and then also public art as a collection continuing to build up our holdings on Dorothy Hood. And there's enormous potential for scholars and students and just people in general who are interested in her work. And so, again, we're delighted to come together around an artist that I think everybody in the room really appreciates. So, welcome, and I hope that the conversation is really enjoyable for everyone.
I'm not sure I could ever ad-lib as wonderfully as that just happened. That was beautiful. You didn't need any notes. I'd like to introduce you to the panel this evening and share some thoughts about them. I'm not perfect at ad-libbing, so I wrote my own notes, so please forgive me. I'd like to introduce first my good new friend, Deborah Colton of the Houston-based Deborah Colton Gallery. Deborah joins us with many hats on this evening. Foremost, she is instrumental in our acquisitions of collections like the Dorothy Hood archives for the libraries, and also her donation of the Dorothy Hood mixed media collage Coptic Days to public art of the University of Houston system to augment the growing collection of Dorothy Hood objects and papers for study at the university. Already with the spirit of a generous and scaled approach to giving, Deborah's efforts as a donor and a champion of unique and rare collections for study, inquiry, and display planted a very important seed that is growing in front of you right now. The bridging of art and research materials across our institutional collecting strata, the libraries and public art, in ways that create synergies and how we can give our visitors, our students, and researchers a true immersive experience when our collection strategies align. Another hat I would be remiss in not sharing is Deborah's role on the library's Dean's Cabinet. This newly formed group of deeply invested donors from across industry sectors and interests work directly with me as I share the vision of the libraries and our goals. We often map our aspirations to potential philanthropic partners, and the Cabinet helps me build relationships and interests. We're just beginning this journey, encompassing a new strategic plan here at UH called Together We Rise, Together We Soar. And after just a few meetings and emails, the first time meeting face-to-face with Deborah, I cannot say how grateful I am to her and all of the Cabinet members for their generosity of giving essential funds, talent, and time. You've already met my wonderful colleague, Maria Gaztambide, Director and Chief Curator of Public Art at the University of Houston system. She oversees our UH constellation of campuses and their public art at Victoria, Clear Lake, downtown, and of course our campus here where we are this evening. Her approach to offering compelling and pedagogical narratives that have local impact and are also part of a larger vision for the entire system breathes new life into how we engage our campus and local communities with the remarkable art owned by UH, as well as national and international attention when we juxtapose our permanent holdings with traveling and loaned artworks. Maria and I met for the first time less than 2 months ago and I already count her as my natural partner here because we're thinking about the ways we can enhance the residential experience of our students here at U of H, those especially who live here, but those who drive here. In fact, the libraries you're in tonight is a public space. I'm already working with Maria and my colleagues in the libraries, interacting with campus stakeholders, and learning how we can best offer to all who visit the libraries a sense of belonging, an institutional vibe of curiosity, and a space for reflection, study, and engagement. With Maria's expert eye and collaboration, we are excited not only about what's possible in the future, but what we're already doing now tonight. As co-curator of this exhibition, along with colleagues in the library's special collections and the Art Museum of South Texas, Maria's expertise and contributions underscore the connective tissue between art, archives, and libraries through Dorothy Hood's archives. Finally, Christian Kelleher. Christian Kelleher is the head of special collections in the University of Houston Libraries. He also curates the library's primary source visual arts collections and energy and sustainable collections. Christian came to the University of Houston in 2015 from the University of Texas at Austin, where he was the archives and assistant head librarian at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection and managed UT Library's Human Rights Documentation Initiative. He holds a Master of Arts in Library and Information Science degree and a Master of Arts degree in Journalism from UT. I did not know that until I read that right now. That's amazing. Previously, Christian was an archivist and records manager with History Associates Incorporated in Rockville, Maryland, a development assistant with literary publisher Grey Wolf Press in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a Peace Corps volunteer in the Republic of Guinea, West Africa. Christian worked with Deborah Colton and former AMST director Joe Shane to bring the Dorothy Hood papers and the Jose Maria Velasco Maidana papers to UH with archivist Joe Luke and graduate student Katie Allred to process the archives, and with special collections colleagues Greg Bjerke on logistics and technical assistance to help achieve public art's vision of the Dorothy Hood exhibit. Thank you all for agreeing to have a conversation with me. I'm going to ask one question just to kind of open it up, and then we're going to take a break and see if you, not take a break, we're going to see if you want to ask a question, and if not, you can ping it back to me, and I have a few more to ask them, so you can keep this going and lively. But I bet you might have a lot of questions. Okay, my friends. Admittedly, of the four of us here this evening, I'm the least versed in this amazing biography and compelling legacy of Dorothy Hood. But since I've been given the honor to moderate this discussion, I've been immersing myself in learning as much as I can. Like you, however, like all of you out here, I might be a clean slate insofar as the nuanced and interesting details and connections her entire works has engendered. And I'm excited to learn more here through her remarkable exhibit. To open this dialogue with my panel, I'll break the ice with this first question. Would each of you share a bit more about your specific role in working with and researching Dorothy Hood's art and archives, either through the lens of a renowned gallery owner, or an art curator and administrator, or as an archivist, scholar, and librarian, and how this particular experience may have expanded your understanding of her work? We'll start with Deborah.
Well, you'll have to excuse me a little bit tonight because I had dental surgery just about 4 hours ago, so if I'm a little swollen or not at my best, that's why. But I'm so passionate about Dorothy Hood and so elated that the University of Houston Library and Special Collection now has Dorothy Hood's archives that I decided I can't even know I'm not really at my best. One of the reasons that I accepted the position of being on the Dean's Cabinet of the University of Houston Special Collection for Performing and Visual Arts is because I feel it's so important to know the journey of an artist, because that journey and their experiences is represented in the way in which they paint or create work. So to understand more their journey and their essence, is so important to the work and having a deeper appreciation of it. Dorothy Hood always wanted people to experience the work and not just see the color or the shape or the form, but she wanted people to, experience it. And she found painting as being very freeing. It was a very freeing experience to her to paint. Even the collages when she came back from Egypt in 1981 and brought back all these found objects and papers and such. It was part of her experience. So those journals and archives are so important. And even her whole journey, like before she was 11, her father was partners in owning a plane. And, in the movie or the film Color of Life about Dorothy Hood, and I hope you'll all see that because it's beautiful, she said that they did stunts and tricks. Well, that was a long time ago for her to be in a plane as a little girl, if you consider when she was born and her age. But when you look at her work, and it's all about the sky and landscapes and horizons and broad visions. You can see how even her earlier days of being a child affected her experience and how she created these incredible works. So, I could kind of go into the story on how I helped get the archives here, but I think that's kind of the past now, and I'm just so elated that the University of Houston has the archives now, and Christian is doing an outstanding job, and we're so delighted with our new dean, and I know the respect that everyone has for the Dorothy Hood archives and how important they are to the collection. So I hope I answered your question.
1,000%. Thank you. Christian, would you like to expand and maybe riff off of some of the things that Deborah shared?
Yeah, Deborah's being a little bit modest about not talking about the history of how the archives came to the University of Houston libraries. And really, I think it was your idea to seeing sort of the big vision of all these different elements and putting them together and recognizing the potential of the University of Houston libraries, the potential that was part of the Dorothy Hood papers, and the willingness, the desire on the part of the Art Museum of South Texas to realize all of that, and making the introductions, getting us to, I remember the early conversations with you and then director of the Art Museum of South Texas, Joe Shank, about what this could look like, and sort of the guidance that was given to how to piece all of these different elements together, how the works fit with the archives, and how the work that a museum does with art fits with the work that Special Collections does with primary source documents, and realizing all of that vision together. So I think that was really important, critical to making this all happen.
It took 5 years.
Yes, it took a long time.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
we did it, yeah.
and that journey kind of started with the Art Museum of South Texas, going to Dorothy Hood's studio after she had passed away and acquiring the artworks there, and then recognizing that there were these archives and that they needed to be saved, and preserving those for more than a decade, so that then we could happily come along and catalog them and make them available for scholars, for students, for the community to come in, so Special Collections. I hope that, I'll plug right now, we have the exhibit over in Special Collections, but we also have a display of archives from the Dorothy Hood papers out. You're welcome to come over and dig through that. Or we're open to the public, and you can come back anytime and look through the archives. It came in as 100 boxes of archival collection, and I've been an archivist for 20 years, and Dorothy Hood's archive was one of the better archives that I've seen. She documented herself extremely well. I think you can see the significance of the historical materials to her career and to her work, and how she considered that long history, that trajectory of the work. It was great to have that chance to travel to Corpus Christi, go to the storage of the Art Museum in South Texas, pull out the boxes. They've been used recently. Susie Khalil had used them in writing her great book on biography for the exhibit, the retrospective exhibit at the Art Museum in South Texas. And to experience her life through these archives. It's really a pleasure that we always get to do as artists. And it certainly wasn't only for the
Maria, do you want to
Just to add to your point, it seems, just in the short time that I've been using the archives, just putting the exhibition together, I have to say that I agree with you. It seems like she was a woman that was really aware of her own importance, and it's unfortunate that she was born when she was born, and that time, and she was not unusual in the sense that many women artists of equal talent were not afforded all the opportunities perhaps that male artists of their generation were afforded. And in her case, what's really interesting is that she was almost twice marginalized. She was marginalized because she was a woman, and there's many, many pieces in the archive where she'll write letters, she'll be very insistent in getting representation from galleries and from museums, and many, many rejections from galleries and museums because, oh no, we already have a Helen Frankenthaler, or oh no, we represent Joan Mitchell and we can only afford to represent one woman artist. So it was over and over again, her knocking on doors, her being rejected, but she persisted, which is an amazing story in and of itself. And also because she was here in Houston and here in Texas. So again, New York-centric art world at that time, again, twice marginalized. But I think what's really important about her is that my background is in Latin American art, and I really see her as a bridge. As many of you know, she spent the bulk of her, 20 odd years in Mexico, and she absorbed everything that was happening in Mexico. She had trained at RISD, spent time in New York, spent 20 years in Mexico, and was involved with the greatest of intellectuals that convened in Mexico during those 20 years. So anybody from the 3 great muralists to a number of very important European artists and intellectuals who made it to Mexico, including surrealists such as Leonard Carrington or Remedios Vagos. All of them convened in Mexico, and she was fully absorbed and accepted into that milieu. Yet, in my mind, her importance is that she bridged both cultures, New York school and then also the Latin American school, and that she did it through this kind of Texas lens, Texas worldview, this whole idea of the expansiveness of our landscape that really comes through in her work, and that for me is really exciting and amazing, and I'm really hopeful that with the processing of the archives and the continued effort towards building more and more work in our collection and certainly in other collections in Houston, and through the efforts of Deborah and also McLean Gallery and all the institutions that are involved in really helping to elevate her work, that she will find her place in the narrative of modern art. In the same way that other artists, maybe I'm thinking Agnes Colton recently has got a beautiful show, and also Helga Klint, for example. These are great women artists who are now just being discovered in the way that we think. Everybody, I think, here thinks that Dorothy will be discovered and really spoken about in that same light, and we're just excited to be able to contribute to that.
Thank you so much. This is so powerful. I'm going to do a sound check. Can you all hear okay? Okay, wonderful. I wanted to know if anyone had any questions that were burning through them, and they'll come around with the microphone. We're going to start with our friend here in the white shirt, and then we'll come here to you, sir.
Hi.
Okay, yeah.
Hello. Hi. So first of all, I'm an alumna of the History of Art department. So this is great, I think, for students to have such a resource. But I guess what I'm thinking about is the meaning of the word public, and I wonder if this, exhibition was, an opportunity for everyone involved to reflect on it. What does it mean to be a public art collection, and what does it mean to be a special archive collection in a public space? So yeah, I would be interested in hearing what you have.
Well, I'll be brief. For me, public art is just art in public space. So whether that's large outdoor sculpture or paintings or, a sculpture indoors, it's all public because that's the beauty of it. We're meeting people where they are. And so, again, it's about really, in the case of Dorothy Hood, making sure that we can bring access to her work and thought to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and special collections, I often, and some of you already have heard me say this, even this evening, I'll often say special collections I see as a sort of this space between a library and a museum. A museum can be a little bit, you're set aside from the works a little bit. Whereas a library, you go in, you pull the books off the shelf and everything. We're in this space in between where we have the primary source historical materials that you will see in the museum, but you can come in and as I said, we are open to the public. Anybody can come in and page through Dorothy Hood's letters from Gaztambide or the correspondence that she had with Meredith Long. And so you can experience all of this history firsthand. And it's quite extensive, and we want to, this is a great opportunity. Public art is art in public places and archives, public archives now. We have archives in those public spaces as well. We're able to sort of expand beyond the walls of an archive or of a special collection and get them out, with this opportunity to more people.
It's part of our history as a city, in terms of who we are as an art city now, based on what's happened in the past. So it's really important. I thought it was very important that Dorothy Hood's archives come back to Houston, because she was basically a Houston artist. Of course, she was in Mexico and she spent time overseas and in New York and such, but her studio and her life was mostly here. So the University of Houston, I'm so impressed with what they're going to be doing with the archive. They have the most incredible scanning machines that, I've been allowed to see the scanning room. These archives and journals will be able to be available for people online also. They'll be able to access it in other ways. So, researchers that believe that Dorothy Hood is someone of major importance on a worldwide basis will actually be able to access some of these important papers and journals. And where else should it be but in our city's university? And, the University of Houston serves so many of our students and helps them have so many opportunities for wonderful careers in the future. And it's really, in my mind, one of the cores of the whole city is the University of Houston. And the special collection is like almost, and public arts is almost like the heart or the heartbeat, because it's where the history is and the background and everything else kind of relates to that, and that's what makes all the other components of the university stronger, is because of what the library has and offers. So I'm sure my dean is very happy that I'm saying that, but I feel it's very, very true. And it's kind of from something that the dean said in the last dean's cabinet meeting, and I think she's right.
And in the sphere of culture too, this is an incredible collection, but it's certainly not the only collection that is as-rich and really documents the vibrancy of our city as well. You know, we could go on and on.
Yeah, I'll also make a plug. We have Burt Long's archives, and I know that there's a Burt Long show at the Colton Gallery. And on Saturday, I'm going to see the Burt film, so that'll be fun. Yeah, so but the art guys, that's a great connection with public arts. There are archives here, diverse works, and Lawndale, and a lot of great.
And you have a hip hop collection too, right?
Oh yeah.
Houston 80s.
Based on DJ Screw.
That's my era. I grew up here.
Yeah, so this is a standout element, but yes, one element of a larger endeavor.
I love that you brought up all of those different collections, because the other part of this is they can talk to each other, and we love for our students and our researchers to have that intimacy with the artists, but also be able to interrogate why we have things and what we have, and bring to fore what we are missing. And I think this is a perfect example of an amazing eye and Deborah saying there's something missing at Houston that could help us tell the story and to make it publicly accessible. Yes, sir.
How prolific was she, and how many pieces, oil paintings, does the South Texas Museum of Art have? And do we have any idea? I mean, I know she was alive for more than 70 years, and according to the archives in there, I saw she was drawing from when she was a little girl. So, total number of pieces, museum collections, etc.
Well, we don't, there's no one here from the museum that could tell us how many they have, but, you know, a good amount of her art estate was donated to the Art Museum of South Texas. It wasn't all of it. The power of attorney executor did keep a fair amount, but it was all the journals and papers and archives. It was her ashes. It was a lot of works on paper, and a lot of paintings and, of course, drawings and works on paper too, but a lot of collages. But the actual number, I think we'd have to talk to the registrar at the Art Museum of South Texas to determine that. Do you have any idea?
My recollection is that it was 40-something paintings and a larger number of collages.
A lot of collages, yeah.
And many of the paintings are large format as well, oversized, so that is challenging. It's challenging for the estate too.
Well, and that number was what was acquired after her death. I think the Art Museum they exhibited Dorothy Hood earlier, and they also had works previously. I don't know what their total would be. Overall, catalog raisonné hasn't been done. There's great resources to do that in the archives. So between the lists of works and the correspondence with galleries and sales, and we could get a fairly good picture, I think, of the overall work, the overall group.
She painted every day. Yeah, she just loved it. She felt it was very freeing. So, you know, if you paint every day. Now, there was a period of time when her husband was ill that she worked more on collages during that time because it was a little less complex and, you know, not as time-consuming. I think the Art Museum of South Texas has a lot of collages. Meredith Longary still had a lot of collages, actually. She was very prolific with her collages during that period in the 80s.